I've been writing this speech in my head over the last year and a half with greater frequency as it became clear that this was what I was going to have to be doing with my life. And if you asked me a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago if I ever seriously thought I would actually be doing this, I would have said sure as sugar no. But life is very weird in that sometimes you pick your path and other times your path picks you. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm known on the interwebs as Viva Fry, the Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. My name is David Freiheit. I'm a Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. And look, I wrote this shirt, Politics Ruins Everything. And when I first started this channel, I wanted nothing to do with politics. I wanted to know nothing of politics. When I started this channel, it was the distraction. It was the cathartic relief from the practice of law that I was doing as, a job, as my life. I was a lawyer. I was a lawyer who never particularly loved the practice, who found it to be incessant, unrelenting, unhealthy stress. And this channel was my relief from that stress. I started off making quirky videos, and at one point I started making daily vlogs, and at one point I started making a little money with the channel, and I was like, okay, well, I can give up law at some point, hopefully, and pursue this passion. And then what ended up happening, as with the principle of ikigai, the Japanese concept of when everything overlaps, what you're good at, what you love doing, what the world needs, and what you can make money doing. When all four of those overlap, that overlapping center part of the Venn diagram is called your ikigai, your purpose in life. And at one point in the evolution of this channel, I started making the law videos, and people started watching them. And then April 2019, I think it was 2019, I did the Alex Jones breakdown of the deposition, and I realized I could apply my law knowledge to stuff that was going on in the real world to make it make sense for people in the real world. What ended up happening? I quickly realized the degree to which politics and law overlap. I never fully appreciated it before. I always thought law existed in abstractum. Politics had nothing to do with law. Politics had nothing to do with law enforcement. Politics was, for Washington, for Ottawa, and that's it. But I quickly learned in doing the vlogs, the VLAWGS, that politics, while it ruins everything, it also infiltrates everything. And at first I was a spectator, seeing the degree to which politics infiltrated law, and I like to think I still remained apolitical on my channel. I like to think that I still have remained apolitical, even if there are certain political tendencies in the application or misapplication of the law, but whatever, anybody watching the channel knows what I'm talking about. It was really only after the lockdowns, at the beginning of COVID, that I began to realize the world around me was changing in a way where I could, not that I'm getting political, but where I could no longer remain silent. I could no longer refrain from having an opinion, giving my opinion when giving an analysis on certain issues. And it's not necessarily to try to impose that opinion on others, to convince others that I'm right. It's just that when you're talking about lockdowns and the courts dismissing lawsuits, contesting those lockdowns, contesting the measures, at some point I'm going to share my opinion just because it's a serious enough matter that my opinion might be relevant in my analysis, or I'll just share my opinion for fairness for the viewer so that you know where I stand in my analysis on an issue. As this COVID stuff, I was about to say nonsense, but I have to try to remain respectful and apolitical until I'm going to get a little heated under the collar, which doesn't exist on this shirt. As the COVID nonsense got progressively more and more nonsensical, excessive, tyrannical, and I started to see the very world in which I live change for the worse, change for the tyrannical. I started making a lot of videos on it, and I started commenting on it a lot. So much so that I became thoroughly convinced in my own head that if I didn't get up and try to actually participate in active change, people might start suspecting nefarious things about the degree to which I was complaining about the world around me. Doing my legal analyses of situations, Justin Trudeau's order in council banning firearms, his scandals, his ethics scandals, and I approached those from a legal, apolitical perspective. The more I saw how politics is ruining politics, and it's ruining the very fabric of our Canadian society. And as I've grown to appreciate the very fabric, dog scratching himself, don't scratch yourself, the very fabric of our North American free Western society. And it's not just Canada, to be fair. We're seeing it in Australia, we're seeing it in the UK, we're seeing it throughout the world. A slow drip of total control being exercised by the governments of the world over the people of the world. And as I broke down and dissected and analyzed more and more of these lawsuits, I noticed that the courts are deferential to the politicians. The politicians, they consider themselves to be a class above and beyond the lowly hoi polloi, the citizenry who must abide by the rules that these politicians impose, but the politicians themselves always manage to find exceptions for them, their loved ones, and their connected friends and family. At some point, I said, if I'm going to complain, I'd better try to do something if I'm going to complain, which brings us full circle back to the politics ruins everything, and what some people are going to call hypocrisy, and what other people are going to say the natural and necessary evolution of a human who has seen things that have shaped his present and vision of the future. I'm running for Member of Parliament for the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier's party, PPC, French Parti Populaire de Canada. I said, that is it. I can no longer just sit by and watch my present and my future and the future of my kids and the future of my friends and the future of my kids' friends and the future of my friends' kids be absolutely sacrificed and absolutely disregarded by government which is either incompetent, malicious, or a combination of the two. I can no longer sit by and not try to have a voice, not try to participate, not try to influence that conversation. So I'm running. I'm running against Marc Garneau, who is the Minister of Transport or Foreign Affairs. He was bounced around in the Trudeau cabinet. I'm running against him in the district of Westmount and Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, which, if I understand correctly, in the last federal election, there was something like 55,000 votes cast in this district. The PPC got 550 some odd, which was their first time in the federal elections, 2018. So they got about 1%, which, you know, for a brand new party is what it is, especially a brand new party that is basically competing with the Conservatives. Now, getting to other things that I've seen and how I picked the PPC in particular, I don't consider myself to be a conservative, period. And there's no but to that. I do not consider myself to be a conservative. I do not consider myself to be a liberal. I think that these political brands, these political labels are absolutely useless, except to allow others to demonize or, tribalize based on these labels. I have political views which are both conservative and liberal, and I do not consider myself to be a conservative. Unless the world has now finally told me that believing in individual rights and liberty, opposing lockdowns, opposing mandatory vaccines, opposing vaccine passports, opposing curfews, opposing shutting down businesses and destroying people's lives under the hopes that you can somehow control a virus. If someone tells me that that's conservative, I guess in your mind, in that person's mind, I'm conservative, but I do not consider myself to be conservative. I consider myself to be the defender of the greatest minority on earth, to quote Ayn Rand, the individual. Anybody who does not support individual rights, the individual being the smallest minority on earth, cannot be said to be protecting any minority rights. And when I look at the way the country is going, in the response to the pandemic, how we got here, how we dealt with it when it got here, and what all political parties are doing right now, which is nothing less than reveling in their newfound power, usurpation of every aspect of citizens' lives. When I saw that happening, there was only one party left to join. I don't care what my political affiliation was, unless I supported these things, there was only one party to join, and that is the People's Party of Canada. Now, when I say politics ruins everything, I mean in the sense that, you know, people get preachy, they try to tell you what to think, they try to tell you who to vote for, and they try to pressure you or shame you or guilt you into it. I have never been about that, and I never will be about that, even given what I'm doing right now. I'm going to keep the political run distinct from my YouTube channel. I've created a YouTube channel called Viva PPC, which I'm going to be posting some unique exclusive content documenting this entire process. But I'm not going to tell anybody anywhere who to vote for. I'm not even going to tell them to vote for me. The idea of this run is for me to participate in the public discussion, get my ideas out there, listen to what other people are saying, try to use those to shape my vision of the future. And if people like what I think and people like what I say and people like my vision for the future of Canada and to some extent the free world, they will choose to vote for me without having to be told, pressured, guilted into doing so. That's how it works. You don't tell people what to think. You don't tell people who to vote for. You don't tell people what to do. You give them the information. You let them know who you are, and they will make the decisions for themselves, and they are capable of making responsible decisions when they have sufficient information. And my goal right now, to get that information out there, to express myself, to express the change I want to see in the world in the hopes that it resonates with people out there. And if it doesn't, that'll be an indication to me as to where Canada stands now and where it's going to go in the future. If it does resonate, that'll be an indication to me as well. But I have not stayed quiet, because I certainly haven't stayed quiet, but I have done what I can and will continue to do what I can do to educate, to inform in an apolitical, non-pressure manner with my YouTube channel. But I'm also going to run for the PPC, and I am going to give the powers that are out there now a run for their money, both ideologically and in terms of transparency. We have grown accustomed in government to systemic and institutionalized corruption, so much so that when it's on our side, we'll say it's good politics. When it's on the other side, we'll say it's corruption. We will tolerate the corruption of our own, as pure tribalist mentality would allow one to do, to say, yeah, but there is no room for corruption in politics, and we have to weed it out right now. And if people want to vote it back in, good. I know where people stand, people know where I stand, and I will firmly oppose it to the bitter end until I decide what my future holds in wherever I see my future in the future. But it is time now for Viva, for David Freiheit, to take the debate to the politicians. I will continue to put out the content to educate in as best I think I can and in as best I can everyone out there, so that people out there can make their own educated decisions. But I am now going to go out and take the fight to the politicians, the fight for civil rights, the fight for individual rights, the fight to live your own life and not be micromanaged by an ever-knowing government. People say, why don't I trust the government? Let's just say I don't trust anybody. For the same reason I wouldn't necessarily trust private enterprise for certain things, I won't trust the government for certain things. The government is the necessary evil, and as such needs to be kept to the absolute minimal necessary evil. I don't trust the government to run my life. I don't trust the government to run your lives. I don't trust the government to make deeply personal decisions for me, and I don't trust the government to do anything better than private enterprise can. To some extent, the government is actually worse, because they are oftentimes held less accountable than private enterprise. So in as much as nobody trusts private enterprise, they're held accountable to votes by the dollar and to the law. Whereas politicians are just not. If the last year has taught us nothing, if it's proved nothing, it's that the government, by and large, are incompetent. They don't suffer the consequences of their own policy decisions. They don't even abide by the own rules that they impose on others. And that is not how anyone or any entity should lead. That is how one dominates. That is how one acts as a tyrant. That is not how one leads. A boss does not send the employees out to do that which the boss would not do. A leader does not send the troops out to do something that they would not do. And they don't send them out to suffer consequences that they themselves would not suffer. So you do it all together, and that's what I'm going to do. I've been ranting for a long time. I'm doing it. David Freiheit for Member of Parliament for the PPC, People's Party of Canada. It is going to be one heck of an interesting election cycle when they finally call the federal election. That's the news. VivaPPC.ca is the website. If you want to support my campaign, do it only through VivaPPC.ca or the People's Party of Canada website. I'm keeping both of these things, my YouTube channel, distinct. I'm just making the announcement there now so you all know. That's the announcement. See you all on the interwebs. Peace.